Ladies and gentlemen, long before Houston Astros were implicated in that cheating scandal, long before they moved to the American League and kind of put the universe off its axis where they should have been a National League team for the rest of their franchise history, the 1980 version of the Houston Astros was more like an NL East team of that era. Could have won the World Series easily, but just like Montreal, the Phillies took care of the Expos with their power, and he took care of the Astros with their power, and of course the leadership of Pete Rose. Now, the 1980 Houston Astros, led by Bill Verdon, won to the Western Division in their 19th season. Now, after a late collapse in '79, the Astros finished in a tie for first place in National League West with a record of 92-70 with the Dodgers, having lost 3 in a row in LA in the final series of the season. The squads played a one-game playoff on October 6th to determine the division champion. Now, what's bizarre about this, ladies and gentlemen, the game was not shown in Canada, even though it was a playoff contest. Now, the Astros won that game, marking the first time in franchise history the squad qualified for the postseason. They went on to face the Phillies in the NLCS, probably one of the best of all time, losing 3-2. Now, owner John McMullen and GMs Tal Smith and Al Rosen put together a great squad. Now, the big deal came in the offseason when he signed Nolan Ryan away from the Angels on November 1979. Joe Morgan was also brought in for extra Ben Stritt. Now, on July 4th, in one of the biggest games in Astros history, pitcher Nolan Ryan recorded the 300th strikeout of his career by fanning Cesar Geronimo of the Reds. Now, the Dodgers, again, with the extra game, finished 92-71. The Reds closed third place 89-73. Now, it was a good year for Houston because against Atlanta, Chicago, Cincinnati, San Diego, and San Francisco, they passed double figures in victories. For some strange reason, ladies and gentlemen, they had a hard time against the AL East. They went 5-7 against Montreal, 3-9 against the Phillies. So that was a precursor to what was going to happen in the postseason. Now, their lineup was very, very workmanlike and very hard working with former Blue Jay Alan Ashby catching, the great Enos Cabell, Cesar Cedeno, Jose Cruz, Art Howe, Joe Morgan, Canadian Terry Puel, Craig Reynolds, and of course the big starter, J.R. Richard. The pitching staff was tremendous, ladies and gentlemen. Joaquin Andahar, Ken Forsch, Necro, J.R. Richard as the key pitchers on the squad, including Nolan Ryan, Joe Sambito, and of course Dave Smith. Now, in the catching, they had Bochy, Ashby, and Pujols in sort of like a combination effect. Infielders included Enos Cabell, Danny Heap, Art Howe, the underrated Rafael Landeskog, Joe Morgan, Craig Reynolds, and an up-and-coming Denny Walling. Now, the outfield, Cesar Cedeno, Jose Cruz, the egotistical Jeffrey Leonard, with Terry Puel and Gary Woods. Now, coaches for the team as well included the great Deacon Jones. Now, in April, they finished 13-5 with a big 9-3 record, but May was bad, 12-14. But in June, 18-9 with 13 big victories at home. August were strong again with 9 wins at home and 9 away, and 16-11 in the last 27 games. Now, Ashby had a consistent season, 3 homers and 48 RBIs. Art Howe, 10-46. Joe Morgan, 11 homers and 49 RBIs. Even though the power wasn't there, 55 RBIs. Craig Reynolds had 28 RBIs. Jose Cruz had 11 homers and 91 RBIs in the cavernous Astrodome. Cesar Cedeno, 10-73 with a 309 average. And of course, Terry Puel, 13-55. Now, the other players, the key one, of course, was Rafael Landeskog and Denny Walling, who put up some great numbers. Now, Necro went 20-12 that year. Ryan, in an inconsistent season, went 11-10. Ken Forsch went 12-13. Vern Rule went 12-4. J.R. Richard went 10-4. And in relief, of course, Sambito had 17 saves, Dave Smith had 10, and LaCorte had 11. Now, The series against the Philadelphia Phillies started slow for Houston. Steve Carlton outlasted Ken Forsch with a save to Tug McGraw, and that game Lazinski had a big home run for the winners. Now, 65,000 people showed up for that game. Game 2 went Houston's way with a big rally in the 10th inning, and this was a trend of the series, ladies and gentlemen. Most of them went to extra innings. Frank LaCourte won it with Andujar getting the save. Game 3 at the Astrodome was again another classic. Houston won 1-0 and only 6 hits, with Dave Smith in relief getting the victory, and Tug McGraw, of all people, giving up the winning run in the bottom of the 11th. Now, this is the controversial Game 4. Philadelphia was behind 2-0, scoring 3 runs in the 8th. Houston tied it up in the bottom of the 9th inning, but he scored 2 more runs in the 10th on a big play, again by Pete Rose at the plate. Warren Brewster won with Zambito taking a loss. McGraw another save. Now, Carlton went into the 6th inning, but the relief by section kept it going. Now, Game 5, again, one of the most important games in National League Championship history. It capped the series in fitting fashion with seemingly endless surprises and excitement. The game is available on YouTube if you want to check it out. The Astros jumped to an early lead in the first with a run-scoring double by Jose Cruz. Philadelphia bounced back to take a lead on a 2-run single by Bob Boone in the second. However, the Astros saw Louis Pujols and Enos Cabell thrown out to the plate in the 2nd and 5th, but finally broke through to tie the game 2-2 on an unearned run in the 6th, thanks to an error by Greg Lazinski, who was extremely bad in left field. Now, Houston took what seemed to be a solid 5-2 lead in the 7th on an RBI single by Denny Walling, a wild pitch from Phillies reliever Larry Christensen, and a run-scoring triple by Art Howe. That 3-run deficit in the 8th inning against Nolan Ryan seemed insurmountable, but the Phillies would not die. They loaded the bases with nobody out on 3 straight singles, including 2 infield hits, and then got 2 runs and a walk to Pete Rose and a ground up by Keith Moreland. An RBI single by former Expos Del Unser tied the game 5-5, and then Manny Trio put the Phillies ahead with a 2-run triple to make it 7-5. The Astros promptly came back to tie the game in the bottom of the 8th, with Rafael Landestro and Jose Cruz each singling in a run. Neither team scored in the 9th, but the Phillies got doubles from Unser again and Gary Maddox in the 10th to take an 8-7 lead. Now, Philadelphia's Dick Ruffin retired the Astros in order in the bottom of the 10th, and the Phillies had won their first pennant since, get this, 1950. They eventually went out to defeat the Cincinnati Royals 4-1 in the World Series. Now, Dick Ruffin won the game. LaCourte took a loss. 27 hits in a contest, 15 runs. Pitchers for Philadelphia included Byström, Brewster, Christensen, Reed, and McGraw. And Ruffin for Houston, Ryan, Zambito, Forsch, and LaCourte. Now, the idea about the Astros that year, without Pete Rose in the lineup, I don't think the Phillies would have bet the Astros. Their top hitters like Luzinski, but Maddox and Unser and all the the workman-like Phillies, including Boone, were the factor. I watched all 5 games in a series, and I tell you, one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. They brought Nolan Ryan in with all that money. He had a mediocre or subpar season. He was given the ball in that inning, and just like Bob Gibson in 1968, one of the greatest pitchers of all time, no fault of his own, either bad luck or bad pitch choice, they should have won. It cost them the World Series. So eventually the Astros kind of were mired in the wilderness. 86, they did make the playoffs, 81 as well, but to see such a well-balanced team, and Joe Morgan said in published reports, and I hope you take this right way if any Houston fans listening, he said Don Gullett would have won that game, and it's true. But Nolan Ryan was kind of mired in California, and he already won a World Series with the Mets, so he might have been like partially satiated. But I have no respect for the modern Houston Astros because the workmanlike hard work ethic of the Astros back in the day are not part of the current Astros. There's a lot of controversy in the team, not even the same style we had back in the day. And they may win the World Series this year, and all the power to them, but they are in the American League where they couldn't win in the National League because they weren't willing to play the small ball enough, or maybe they didn't like losing to the Mets in '86 and the Phillies in consecutive years when everything was on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, the Astros of 1980. Again, for not having one player in hitting 20 home runs and to be in the mix until Game 5 against a much more deadly team with the Phillies, because Schmidt could beat the Expos for some reason. He couldn't garner enough to beat the Astros. It's very interesting how baseball goes. It's a conflict of styles. Would Montreal have beaten the Astros easier than the Phillies? Probably yes, because they stole more bases. They're more consistent on the road than Houston was. But my God, what an interesting series. It's like when Joe Frazier in his prime took on Ali after he came back. It was a heavyweight fight from start to finish. And I think Al Michaels had a very, very good call of the series, of course, aided by Howard Cosell. But Game 4, ladies and gentlemen, twists and turns galore, and of course, Game 5. And in the words of my dad, he said, we got rid of Unser and he shows up and he kills the Astros. He said, baseball is funny. Thanks for listening. Bye.